Hello and welcome to Joomla Skills. My name is Frank Spangler and I'll be your instructor for these video tutorials on how to build your own beautiful website using Joomla. In this particular series, we're going to take a look at some of the very basic skills that you will need to acquire even before you start building your website. Now, some of you who have worked with websites in the past may know and understand everything in this first elementary series, and you can skip right over to some of the other tutorials where we get into working with Joomla. In this particular lesson, we're going to talk about how to register your own domain name. And if you've never worked on building a website before, you may even be asking the question, well, what is a domain name? Well, even though you may not realize it, you are actually working with domain names every day. Every time you jump on the internet and decide to go somewhere, you are typing in a domain name. For example, if we want to go to Amazon.com, we type in their domain name, which is kind of like their address on the internet. And as we type that in and hit return, we are taken to their site. And in order for you to have your site, you need to have a domain name yourself. And you need to register this name at a domain name registrar and pay a certain small fee, annual fee usually. Sometimes you can save a little money by getting it a 3-year sign up. It's not much. Usually we can get a domain name for about $10, $15 for a year. But it is something that you need to do before you build your website. And there are many places on the internet where you can actually register a new website domain name. A couple of tips that you might keep in mind when you're looking for a place to register your domain name, and that is try and find a place that has a good reputation, someone that's been in the business a long time and is likely to be around for many years to come. A second tip that people suggest is a good idea, and that is to register your domain name at a site on the internet that is going to be different than the place where you host your website. And we'll, in our next lesson, talk a little bit more about what we mean when we say hosting our website. You'll notice at this particular website called GoDaddy that you can not only register a domain name here, but they also do web hosting. But a lot of people recommend that it's maybe not the best idea to do your domain name registering at the same place where you're going to do your web hosting. And that way, if your host provider should go bankrupt, disappear on you, they're not going to also run off with your domain name. And you can easily rebuild your website at another host provider. Now, like we say, you can find thousands of places on the internet where to register a domain name. I like GoDaddy. They've been around a long time, have a very good reputation, and they make it very easy to search for potential domain names. Now, the next step, even before you start searching at a website for a domain name, is to actually sit down with some pen and paper and do a little bit of brainstorming as to what domain name you would like to register. And it's a good idea to come up with a lot of alternatives. And the types of names that you'll be looking for will depend a lot on the type of website that you're building. If it is a website to advertise your business, you'll want to try and find a domain name that uses your business name, or at least comes close to using your business name, so that people can remember you and try and find you based on your actual business name. You might be developing a blog that you'll be commenting on a particular type of industry or a particular topic. Well, you might want to try and come up with a domain name that kind of captures the essence of that topic that you're going to be discussing. And once you've come up with about 10 or 15 possible names, then it's time to go to a place like GoDaddy and start plugging in some names. Now, the way this is set up by default, GoDaddy will assume that you are searching for a .com extension. So whatever you type in here, it's going to first of all look in the .com domain area and let you know whether or not your choice has been taken. Now, In the tutorials that are to come on Joomla, what we're going to do is actually build a fictitious website about a video production company or a media production company called Vivid Media Productions. And so we want to try and find a domain name that kind of goes along with the name of our business. And so first of all, we're going to try just vivid.com and see if that's taken. Well, if you have tried searching for websites in the .com arena before, you'll know that almost any English word in the dictionary .com is already taken. They may not actually be live websites. What's happened is that entrepreneurs have gone and registered lots of domain names in hopes that someone will want to one day buy that domain name and would be willing to pay a premium price to buy it away from an individual that already has it registered. So unfortunately, this means that most all of the EnglishNames.com have been taken. In fact, almost every combination of two EnglishNames.com is taken. We could try this, vividmedia.com. And we see that the vividmedia.com is also taken. We could take a look at some of the alternatives that are suggested here by GoDaddy. We could look at some other possible extensions, like we could go with Vivid Media Ventures, for example, or Vivid Media Technology, Vivid Media Tips. These days, there are a lot of new extensions that you can use when you're setting up your website. Vividmedia.ca is being recommended here. And since I'm doing these, recording these tutorials from Canada, this is a very common extension for Canadian businesses. And so I might want to just go with that, vividmedia.ca. The problem is that if I'm wanting to go and attract an international clientele, they might have a little difficulty finding me because it's not a very common extension for people who live outside of Canada. And they might be typing in vividmedia.com by mistake and not find me because I have an unusual extension name. Let's see some of the other options here. We see that vividmedia.photography is available, and that might be a good option. A couple problems, though. The business that we're going to be making our websites on does not only photography, still photography, but also does video and graphics. So it might not represent the company the best. And I don't know, some of these new extensions on the internet, they might actually take a couple of years for us to kind of catch on that these are valid, viable website options to try and to use. People are kind of used to typing in the .com or the .net. And so some of these new ones are probably going to take us a little while to get used to. Well, let's try typing in the full name of the business, Productions, see if that's available. And we see that that is already taken. Actually, I know who has that domain name. It's me. So I'm not too worried that it's showing up as being taken here. In fact, I'm relieved. And that is actually the website address that we will go with for our tutorials. But just before we finish up our tutorial here, we could maybe take a look at a couple of other options, just in case you are still searching for something. We see that an option here is a .net option, vividmediaproductions.net, and that's a pretty good alternative to a .com. .net's been around for 20, 25 years, and people are used to typing in .net, .org. Is another one that's been around. Now, a .org is usually used by nonprofit organizations. And so if your organization, if your business is for profit, then you should probably stay away from .org. But .net is a good alternative. And so if this was actually taken by somebody else, I might consider using the vividmediaproductions.net. And for the purposes of our tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and select that. And once you have found a domain name that you're happy with and you've got it selected, you can continue to cart and check out. And as you check out, you will be registering your name on the internet. Now, GoDaddy comes up with a few options to add on to your basic domain name registration. You can add some personal protection to your domain name. Not that familiar with what this does protect you for, and it's not usually necessary, but it might add a level of security to your website if that is something that is of concern to you. They have some hosting options that you can add at this point. You can add email options to your new website address. But we will also have email options. As we register with our host provider, we will be able to get all of the email options that we could ever want through that. So we don't need to add an extra $4 a month here for an email address. So we can just continue on to cart. And you might be a little surprised at the figure here. How did it get from $10 up to almost $80? Well, by default, GoDaddy may have plugged in a 5-year buy-in. Probably what you'll want to do as you're just starting out experimenting with building websites is just start with a 1-year plan. And that brings us back to the $10. And so at this point, I think we could do our checkout. And if you have not yet registered at GoDaddy, here's your opportunity to sign up, and then you'll be able to check out with any type of major credit card or PayPal, or I think they also have a number of other ways that you can use your financial institutions to check out. All right, well, I believe that does it for how to register a domain name, and we'll see you next time as we learn about how to find a good host provider. I hope that you were able to find a domain name that really works for you.